It's our second episode, and we're talking about our relationship with remembering our past selves, how our memories have shaped us in the present, and how we can begin to feel processes of remembering in a more positive and impactful ways. Enjoy the show, facts! It's tiny! It's tiny!
Welcome back to
Feeling My Oats!
We are your hosts,
Jeff Dunaway
and Jojo. And for those of you just joining us for the first time, this podcast is a weekly chat show where we talk about various topics, ideas, events, people, and concepts with our unfiltered opinions. But one question unites us all. What's making you feel your oats right now?
But before we jump into the episode, we want to thank you for tuning in to our first episode where we talk about beginnings. We appreciate all the love and support you've given us. We want to encourage everybody to engage with us on Instagram at Feeling My Oats Pod and Twitter Feeling My Oats PD. You should be able to find all our socials written down in the episode description. For your convenience, for your inconvenience, we want to engage with you in the future episodes as well. So please send us a message at feelingmyoatspod@gmail.com. We want to read some juicy emails soon.
We do, girl.
With
the juicier, the better.
The juicier.
Mm-hmm. The more juice, the more juice, mama.
I was eating pork chops yesterday.
Ew. No one wants to know what the fuck you ate, okay, girl?
With all this in mind, how are you doing, Jojo? What's making you feeling your oats?
I had a nice bowl of oats this morning, and that made me feel pretty oaty.
Is it instant or not instant?
Not instant. Cooked all over the stove.
They're the same thing.
No. It takes a few minutes. You don't nuke that shit either. You just cook it over the stovetop.
Yeah.
And that made me feel my oats.
Do you put anything in it, like honey?
A teaspoon of... Never mind, I wasn't gonna... I'm not gonna say
teaspoon of cup.
Yes, that.
Ew.
There's no salt needed if you do that. No, I just put some brown sugar, sometimes maple syrup, it depends.
Yeah, maple syrup.
Maple syrup's fucking delicious. Also, just an FYI for everyone, if you are baking an apple pie, instead of putting the full amount of sugar, put maple syrup in it.
Yeah.
As a substitute. It's delicious and it's gooey.
I think it's less sweet, right?
No, it's like the same amount of sweetness. It's just gooey.
Right.
And of course, maple syrup is also a better alternative to sugar anyways.
I just think that refined sugar is... I can feel the edge when I'm eating something with very high sugar content.
Yeah.
It's like it sinks into my body and I feel like shit eating
sugar in general. Yeah,
just like a brownie, right? There's fuck tons of sugar in it.
Oh yeah, every fucking dessert.
I know.
A lot of sugar, and that was my downfall over the Christmas break.
Your upfall.
Yeah, my downfall.
Your uprising.
No,
that's not.
The bigger I get, the lower I get to the ground.
TikTok.
It's coming. It's coming. But how are you feeling? What about you, Jeff? What's making you feel your oats right now?
I'm not feeling my oats. It's like kind of like a shitty oats. Like when you shit it out, you can still see it.
It's floating around.
My feeling this week is pretty much like the sticky shit on the toilet bowl.
The shit that's stuck to the bowl.
And I'm trying to
that because you also look like that too.
Fuck you. I'm talking like my feelings about putting my work out there is especially, I think, as artists or creatives, as creators, there's almost no alternatives to publishing your work in the online forum. Yeah. And like that attracts and I think a lot of creatives have to figure out a new way to establish their relationship with their work and not be overwhelmed by numbers, by the amount of likes, and just do the stuff that I want to be doing.
Yeah, I think that's also part of the anxiety I had with this podcast, isn't it? Our first episode.
Right.
I like things to be a little more organized and perfect. And so our first episode, upon listening to it, I realized this was chaos.
Honestly, to that I say lean into it. Lean into the chaos.
That's that's something I need to grapple with, to learn how to do.
Right.
Because I get anxious when I produce chaos. It doesn't
Chaos,
make me...
confusion,
madness.
Whatever.
Yeah. I don't remember how that quote goes, but... yeah, I mean, for the most part, when I release chaos, it makes me so anxious. Like, very anxious. In our first episode, and just listening to it made me anxious. And also having people respond to it and saying, I'm listening right now. My fucking heart dropped out of my asshole. And...
Like, how do you feel about it right now? Like, did you go through those...
I don't think about it. Literally, I try to not... like fixate myself on it, because if I let myself get into that rabbit hole, I'm just going to fucking spiral out of control. So I try not to think about it. And so when someone, like a friend of ours, responded last night saying that they were listening to our first episode, I just ignored it. My intuition was ignore it.
But you don't mean it in a bad way. You don't mean it like ignoring that person, right?
No. I did respond and said thank you, but I ignore the thoughts that are going around in my head saying he probably thinks we're fucking morons. But we are morons.
We're not denying that.
No, we're not.
We've always been not like crazy and like being fags.
Yeah, I mean, part of our chaos is faggotry.
It's chaos.
Being fags is chaotic in its own right, but yeah, it's just like you said earlier, releasing that content and not
giving a flying fuck.
Yeah, and I have to learn how to do that.
Right.
So
I'm learning some like to adjacent to that. I'm grappling the idea of letting go of the whole productivity concept, especially we're beginning in a new year in the middle of a lockdown, and I'm conscious of the fact that I'm producing the content online and having people perceive me.
And like, yeah, because it's very different from your like persona in person.
Right. And like I think about I become self-conscious and I ask myself, oh, she's like as in me. Yeah. She's trying so hard. She's being too much. She's doing all of this, all of that. I'm like, honestly, I don't care. Like, I'm at the stage right now that I just want to do it and have something that I can lean into.
And we've been talking about this podcast for a while now, but you know, with the pandemic, this is the only way to kind of like have that creative outlet. Totally. So,
to that I say thank you.
I say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would.
To you.
For me?
To
personally,
you.
Yes.
That's disrespectful. To you.
I do want to plug my work real quick. I have a essay just came out on the topic of happiness, and it's a part reflection, part review of Judy Garland's famous movie Wizard of Oz. And
I don't think very many people know what that is, what the Wizard of Oz is.
It's basically Dorothy as a quote-unquote fag hag.
It's an allegory for
gays! Accepted!
Hi,
gays! Dorothy snatched all the gay friends.
I mean, that's what fag hags do. They snatch.
They snatched so hard. But she really fucking made the movie her thing.
I'm not gonna lie, I still have never seen it.
Honestly,
I think I've seen bits and pieces. The only reason why I never saw it was because my mom fucking hates it. So whenever something my mom, like if my mom dislikes something, we never watched it as a child.
It filtered through your mom.
Every single musical, never watched them because my mom fucking hates them. Grease, never seen it.
Why do you think your mom hates it?
Because she doesn't like that happy musical bullshit, which I don't like it now as an adult. So I don't know if that's informed by my mother or not, but I tried watching Rent once, and that was a fucking Complete chaos. I hated every single moment. I made it halfway. It's like a 2-hour movie. Mm-hmm. I made it halfway and I turned it off and I'm like, I'm glad they're dying. I'm just kidding. Oops.
Not really.
No, pretty much. But go on, sorry.
Go on.
Go on. I was going through a tangent there, but...
Yeah. But maybe we can talk about happiness on another week that we can dive a little deeper on.
I don't know what she does, but who is she? Happiness.
Miss Garland?
No, Miss Happiness.
Miss Happiness.
She's there.
She's a new variant.
She's contagious.
She's almost too contagious.
All right. Well,
but anyway, you can find me on Substack. Please remind me. It's substack.com/please remind me. There's going to be a new essay dropping every Monday morning. So I appreciate anybody's reading it. If I have any readers out there, I thank you. I salute you.
Mm-hmm. And you do have a newsletter too, right? That sends an email to remind people that you have a new piece that dropped, right?
Yeah, totally.
So you can sign up for that newsletter as well.
Yeah.
In terms of my own plugging, I'm still in the process of acquiring the equipment to start a new Twitch account, and so I'll keep you all posted on the pod's socials when that actually happens. And I hope to keep up with the theme of Feeling My Oats, so it'll most likely be an extension of this podcast. And I'll be streaming video games conversations, among other things. I'm interested in kind of maybe adapting this format into a more conversational approach through Twitch.
Do you think you'll be able to host a show just by yourself?
Of course.
No,
girl, the amount of hosting I've done at my apartment, honey. Yeah, definitely. I'm quite a social being, despite my antisocial demeanor.
I mean, it's Pisces. We love talking to ourselves.
Yeah, true.
And just having a comfort level that is unrivaled.
And the best thing about Twitch is that you're the one speaking and no one is going to interrupt you because you have to engage with writing.
Oh, yeah.
So you decide what the fuck you want to talk about, honey, and whose questions you want to answer.
I want to hear a stream of consciousness monologue of a 30-minute talking about anything. Unscripted, total...
Chaos. Which was our first episode.
Lean into it.
Mm-hmm. And so, as we did in the first episode, we have speed rounds where we talk about various topics, anything from an object, person, place, concept, and we give our initial unbiased, unfiltered
First
opinions.
thing comes to mind.
Yeah, first thing that comes to mind. And our main objective is to give our quick, unbiased, and unfiltered opinions. So without further ado, Jeff...
Go off. How do you feel about cannibalism? Toot or boot?
Oh, okay. It's great population control.
Uh-huh.
It counters climate change.
Uh-huh.
And we get rid of more carbon footprints.
You dog.
You dog, yeah, carbon paw print. It's quite an interesting concept. If you can't eat your friends, who can you eat? I don't really have anything else to say because this is such a fucking weird thing to bring up.
I don't think it's that weird.
No?
Because why? The apocalypse, it's coming, so the apocalypse. It's I feel like it's coming so soon in a lot of the popular media that we consume has to do with it. For example, zombie movies, Yellow Jackets, those kind of...
Zombie movies, though, that's not cannibalism per se.
It's kind of
Or is it?
It's kind of witchcrafty,
Yeah, maybe it's an allegory for another... Usually, I mean, that movie...
Population control.
World War Z, that was about Israel and shit. So it's an allegory for a larger
a political
and social commentary about settler colonialism.
They literally built a wall.
And then the
they
zombies,
climb through it.
The zombies, they do some kind of weird shit where they it's they're all connected.
Right.
But I've never seen the movie. I've just seen clips of it. So I understand that it's an allegory for something else.
Right. But anyway,
in terms of cannibalism, though, I don't think of it.
I'm thinking about Divine. Kill. Condone cannibalism. That's all that I'm gonna say.
Everyone now, condone first-degree murder. Advocate cannibalism. Eat shit.
All right. That's good for you, sis. She came up with that.
So it's now your turn. How do you feel about bad writing?
I wrote that.
Oh.
How do you feel about bad writing?
Sorry. If you wanna...
And I said, i.e., yours.
Fucking bitch. Honestly, I don't care. I think bad writing, we always...
I mean, you have to differentiate bad from good. And like, honestly, I think that all writing is good writing, despite it not being as convincing or conventionally like attractive.
Right. I think it has a lot to do with ego. I think bad writing is when the ego kind of hijacks the initial purpose of that writing. Like someone, like that happens to a lot with academia.
Yeah.
Like the ego kind of like takes over it and people start to become self-aware and produce the writing rather than leading on the writing in a more commonsensical and everyday kind of way.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. That's the first thing that comes to mind.
Well, I think also writing takes practice, so it's like you have to build up to that and like to establish that from someone, like let's say when we were in school, in like elementary school, we started writing and doing creative writing and shit. I don't know if that was your experience, and you probably didn't write in English, did you?
I did write in English. I remember my first piece of creative writing. I wrote a 100-word essay, not like a short story, about a character called Inspector Scissors. How
ready to cut all your fucking wigs.
It's inspired by the Gadget Inspector, but
Inspector Gadget.
Yeah. And I totally rebranded it, and my teacher ate it up.
Oh, she fucking ate it.
She read it in front of everybody, and like that's how I knew.
And then she laughed when she was at home. She's like, "Bitch, you thought you ate it." Just laughing. Anyways.
But I think just to wrap up, I think bad writing means that there's ego. There's so much ego more than the writing itself, and also there's no stakes. Like especially in our current quote unquote political climate, I think every word counts. And our attention span is the lowest of like at our time
it's ever been.
Yeah, and like every word counts, and you have to make it count.
And it's been even worse during COVID.
Right. Yeah,
everyone's just like on edge. Well, everyone's on edge. We don't know what the fuck's happening.
Right.
I noticed my ADD just fucking skyrocketed.
Right.
I can't focus on anything anymore. I can't even sit down and read a fucking book. And I play video games, and sometimes I have to walk away from it because I'm just like not into it.
Get into it.
Get into it. So, without further ado,
how do you feel about the straight drag queen?
I really don't care.
Okay,
you have all these liberals who are just like, they're like, their brains are imploding right now.
Right. But for those who need some context, we're referring to Metamorphosis
on Drag Race,
the latest season of Drag Race,
season 14.
She's the allegedly first heterosexual male. I don't know how. The thing is, identity politics is so they're tiresome.
Annoying. They're really annoying.
But all my commentary of it is, she could have leaned into how straight she was.
She has been.
She has been.
Yeah,
like
she's a has-been.
She can lean into it and make a fool of herself.
She has been. Did you see that Guy Fieri entrance?
Oh.
That was foolish. That was the epitome of foolishness.
Do you think that is a moment? That is going to be a moment that everybody's going to talk about? Like,
no one's been talking. I mean, people have been briefly talking about it, but also, who gives a fuck?
Yeah.
And then people are upset that like drag is a queer art form. I'm like, it also comes out of like black and brown communities of color, like
queer communities
communities of color, exactly. So it's like, if you're gonna have that conversation, maybe you should also talk about the fact that white people have stolen the art of drag too.
Right.
So
that's that.
They pick their battles and they don't think critically about any other like perspective.
Right.
And I'm quite annoyed, and I really don't give a fuck. Because also, these are just people having a conversation about a TV show, and it's not grounded in actual reality.
Totally.
So it's irrelevant to my life. I really don't give a fuck.
I think pop culture has, of course, it has influence on telling people what is cool and what is fierce. And
Of course, yeah.
And the whole idea that...
Yeah, but pop culture is also about consumerism. It's about consuming media, and of course that's also rooted in the biggest evil of all, white supremacy and capitalism.
Right.
Because they've worked in tandem. But, I mean... Yeah, pop culture is this interesting phenomenon that is like about consumption.
Right.
It's about consuming and kind of following the trajectory, following what is, like you said, cool and relevant and fierce and serving. What is
Are you
serving?
giving?
Are you giving? Yeah, it's giving share.
I don't want to share anything with you.
Anyways,
anyways.
Now it's my turn. How do you feel about Sarah Paulson?
Sarah Paulson.
Yeah.
The killer's escaping. The killer is escaping!
Exactly.
Love her. She is, I think, the horror queen. Like our generation is gonna think of her as...
Well, whenever I think of Sarah Paulson, I think of her annoying cry.
On the Ellen show.
On every fucking show she's ever been on. Every show, every movie. It's just Sarah Paulson crying hysterically. Oh, cancel me. But, yeah, that's when I think of Sarah Paulson, I just think...
What's your favorite work that Miss Paulson has done? Miss Paulson. I love calling,
cancel her. Cancel her.
Ageist, sexist.
Mm-hmm.
What's your favorite work that she's done?
Honestly, I can't think of any other than American Horror Story, but those seasons are so completely different that I can't give you a character or anything because I again, just don't care. But
Ooh?
But do you have any final remarks about Miss Paulson here?
I hope she
succeeds.
I hope she succeeds.
At life.
At life. I love you. Bye.
Bye. All right. Now it's your turn.
How do you feel about the word fag?
I love it. And
we can say it because we are one.
I can say fag because I am one. But that's an interesting thing because just the way I approach the word fag is similar to how we've collectively approached the word queer, where like queer once meant something derogatory, and,
right?
And fag also the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I've seen a lot of people reclaiming it. Yeah, exactly. Reclaiming the word fag, faggot. And my personal favorite, faggy.
It's the word fag and adding a Y, like a
Y at the end?
Yeah, it makes it extra faggy.
Yeah, and we've said it on the pod last episode.
People have issues with the word. It's always people that are outside of that.
I mean, it's also always like exclusively like white gays.
Azalea Banks used that word in a very tonal way that it needs to be acknowledged, like in her position as a female black rapstress. In the music industry that has like been neglected and mistreated for so long. Every time she has gotten so much shit about using the word fag and faggot, but
girl, you just call them a spade, mama.
Totally.
Like, if you acting like a fag, then you shut the fuck up.
Totally.
But I think I say it in like a way that is endearing.
Yeah. Hey, fag. Hey, bitch.
Yeah. Hey, bitch. Hey.
I think like those communities are, like for example, our community has a very different relationship with words like those that kind of escape like the normal ideology, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's how we kind of structure our life around with. I mean, not just the language, but how we say it.
Yeah, because I mean, also with like the rise of like liberalism kind of taking all of these terms, and like I used to identify as non-binary, and I still identify as queer, but non-binary kind of it's just been co-opted into like this system, and it has no like political value anymore. It has no resistive quality.
Right.
And queer, same thing, really. It doesn't really mean anything anymore.
Right.
And I like that radicalization of terms. Like, I prefer that. And I think like the word fag now symbolizes that for me personally.
Right. There's an edge of discomfort in it. It kind of
Exactly.
it kind of tickles the.
But queer and non-binary, they don't have that discomfort anymore.
Right.
Because it's like everywhere. But then soon enough, in a few years, you're gonna see fag everywhere.
Oh.
So it's just gonna be the same thing. We're gonna have to figure out another fucking word. We don't know that. We don't have.
We'll find it.
We don't have that vernacular that we think we possess. Somebody lied to us several times.
She's nothing of the sort.
Exactly. But yeah, I think that's enough for that. And finally, Jeff, how do you feel about liberalism? Fucking dense. I know.
We've mentioned the word liberalism, but I think behind that word, what people, their relationship with the word can mean so many different things, right?
Of course. It's like every other word.
Especially as an Asian in Asia who's immigrated to Canada, like there's not a center for me. There's not a home base for me. Like, I'm away from home. I'm not in America. I don't belong here in Canada. So my reaction and my relationship with the word liberalism is it's living in a more survival, in a more flexible sense. Yeah. And like, I'm able to see, like you said, like identity politics, like people grabbing onto these identity markets as a way to market themselves and pivoting to money or selling out, right?
Exactly.
And like, I'm able to see it, but like, however I want to take it, it's like a very
because your approach is completely different from mine or someone else's who are like a first generation immigrant here.
Right.
I mean, you're a first generation immigrant, but like a second generation, let's just say.
Right.
So someone whose parents were immigrants, but they grew up here.
Right. Totally. So for example, what about you? Like as from your experience, what is your picture when?
Liberalism, for the most part, like I've said earlier, they just ruin everything. Right. It's like it's a giant industrial complex that just like co-ops everything.
We should go back to it, but liberalism
and then steals it and then markets that right back to you for consumption and for accumulation of wealth. And
I think we need to dig a little deeper into it, like on another episode. We can.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. But I think, our interpretation and our speed round, I think that's good enough.
Yeah, you're good enough.
No, I'm not.
You're good enough.
But
if you're listeners out there, if you're interested in hearing any of these topics more expanded, let us know in the DMs. We're happy to have a broader conversation about those topics.
Or feel free to email us if you have anything else to add to this conversation. Right. And yeah, we hope to probably, dive deeper into this topic.
Yeah, but before we get into our weekly topic on memory, we want to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
And we're back.
We're back.
Thanks. This week we're talking about memory. So even though we could honestly talk about this topic for a very long time, we want to guide the conversation through our own experiences and interpretations. But first, what are memories? What constitutes remembering? And why the fuck are we always so fixated on negative memories and emotions when we should be immersed in positive ones? These questions are heavy and dense, and we obviously don't claim to have any of the answers to these questions, but we want to use them as launching points for what we're about to embark on. And so, Jeff, how do you reconcile with your past memories? Are there certain things that you do now that prompt those particular memories?
I think before I jump into that, my story about cooking in relationship with my memories, I think you were asking earlier about why are we so fixated on negative memories?
Yeah.
Because I think negative feelings are way more complex and way more...
But are they?
I think so. Like, I think there's only one kind of happiness, but there are like a million versions of sadness and like there's so many different adjectives to describe negativity. And I think as part of our being here and as existence is to trying to figure out that language and how to describe those ugly and nasty feelings. Maybe you can
So happiness is you see happiness as the only positive emotion, basically.
I think so.
And you don't think that sadness could be positive in some ways?
Right. We're talking about putting things in like a binary, right? Like there's a happiness versus sadness. But I think feelings is in general, I think it's like a huge library of like things that are interconnected.
But you can also, I mean, you think of emotions can be interconnected as well. Like you could still feel happiness, but still feel sad at the same time.
Right.
Or like something rouses up a sense of happiness, anger, etc. Like it's not uncommon to have all of those emotions at the same time. So Jeff, how do you reconcile with your past childhood memories, and are there certain things that you do now that prompt those particular positive memories for you?
I think of cooking as a form of reconnecting and also remembering my past. First of all, I just want to say physically cooking is a really tangible thing because everybody's got to eat, and we tend to have this glorified like imagining of, oh, cooking is amazing. It saved my life. It pulled me away from depression, which is true from somebody, but it's not in my experience.
Yeah, it's like for a lot of people during the pandemic, they were making those sourdough starters and
banana breads.
And you can find yeast anywhere.
Right.
But cooking in that sense was cooking and baking, I should say, were, something that kept people afloat.
Afloat,
yeah.
You should see my afloat.
I don't want to see that.
I understand everybody.
I've seen you're afloat. It's not for me.
I understand everybody has a slightly different relationship with food and eating in general because it's about body. It's about access. It's about privilege, right?
Of course, yeah.
But for me, I started really cooking regularly since the start of the pandemic, when there was a huge influx of food media coming in through YouTube.
Yeah,
and you have like people from like Bon Appetit publishing videos almost every day. You have Alison Roman, you have all those like food bloggers who are like putting all this content as a way to cope with, and they know that all the people are stuck at home. They knew they're going to watch videos like this,
of course.
And I think it drove like a huge influx and huge surge of people who really start to cook, and I'm being one of them as well.
Yeah.
And I started to really think about like what I like to eat and what I enjoy in relation to my racial identity as a Chinese and Cantonese person, and kind of honoring those memories with that, because since I'm almost half a world away from my family.
You are across the planet.
Literally.
Yeah.
12 hours away.
That's exactly half.
That's exactly half. Is it?
24 divided
I don't
by
think
2
there's
is
a 24
hour range.
I'm dumb.
24 divided by 2 is what?
12.
Wow.
I don't fucking do math. But I was saying that to this day, I think I'm still trying to untangle my obsession and also the general obsession with authenticity and cooking a dish that is like perfect. I don't think that exists. I don't think that's something that we should strive for. And I think
for you, it doesn't exist.
Right. And on top of that, when I'm thinking about cooking and memory, right, there's a dish that jumps to me. It's a tomato egg stir fry. And it's a pretty universal language in the Chinese and Asian household. I think every family has that one dish that ties their family together.
Yeah, but us was fucking spaghetti.
Potatoes.
And spaghetti for us.
Yeah.
But my mom loves spaghetti. She even told us, like, when she dies, she wants us to just make a big pot of spaghetti. And I'm like, I fucking hate it. Like, we'd eat spaghetti like 3 times a week.
Right.
Because it's easy to make. It's quick.
Do you make the pasta like in a big batch and divide it in throughout the week, or do you just cook it every time?
My mom would cook it every time. Yeah. So it's just easy to make. It's cheap to make.
Right.
And she would put ground beef in it. That's it.
That sounds delicious.
Ground beef, vegetables, a lot of celery, canned tomatoes, like whole canned tomatoes and shit.
No.
Yeah, I'm not a spaghetti person myself. I just don't enjoy it. But that's probably because it was fed to us fucking all the time. It's the same thing with shepherd's pie. Are you familiar with shepherd's pie?
Mashed potatoes.
Yeah. Ground beef, canned corn.
There's always a carb and another carb in it. And some vegetables, occasional.
So it was like ground beef, canned like sweet corn, mashed potatoes.
There's a gravy in it, right?
No, I don't remember. I hated it. I fucking hated that shit too. I haven't had it since. I never liked it. But yeah, there are dishes that do connect families together.
Yeah. Even when I cook it, those memories of Hong Kong kind of jumps to me in a way that feels like repulsive, and also kind of like telling me that I should be accepting of, I should go back and I should be embracing my identity. But it's more tumultuous than that.
Yeah.
Because I'm living here, like I don't have the money sometimes. I don't have the time, and I don't have the ingredients to actually replicate them.
Or the energy.
So
even.
I think in a more realistic way, like my cooking is like, it's a more like rapscallion kind of here and there kind of.
It's a hodgepodge.
It's a hodgepodge way of honoring those memories. And yeah, to kind of wrap up my conversation about cooking and memory, I think Asian American and also food media has this obsession with like capitalizing off of people of colors, food stories, definitely. And like kind of co-opting into like the whole, it's cool now. Like there are foods like boba drinks.
You see them everywhere.
You see them everywhere now. But it suddenly becomes a cool new thing that.
Yeah, you remember that video of that white twink sucking on a straw and choking on a boba?
No comment.
No comment.
It's like food colonialism. Not to describe
you can colonize foods too.
Right. Yeah. But for me as a person of color, seeing those food being like tucked and pulled in the media, it's kind of like, I don't know.
I've always wanted to write a dissertation on food, like the colonization of particular foods and what that does to bodies who aren't, used to eating those kinds of foods. Are you going
to talk about Chinese food?
Yeah, I thought about different kinds of foods in general, like white people eating spicy and how like those spices are not particularly connected to the white people consuming them. And like what kinds of like effects that has on white people.
Why are we shameful of saying white people?
I mean, as someone who is white, I'm ashamed.
Well, you should be.
Yeah, but going back to what you were talking about and your relationship with, what was the recipe again?
It's like a tomato and egg stir fry.
Okay.
I'm gonna make something in.
I want to try it.
Yeah.
I want to try your family dish.
And you can try my family dish.
Mm-hmm. So besides eating ass, like what other recipes do you
Thanks.
Do you like to cook, and like what kinds of flavors or smells even remind you of home? Because this episode is about remembering.
Sorry for sidetracking myself all the time, but
that's fine. I'm going to be doing the same. But I ask this because it's fascinating how our memories are connected to our like bodily reactions to particular ingredients or environments. So
I think the immediate thing that jumps to me is hearing how my mom is dicing green onions in a really fine way. You can hear the intervals that the cleaver is hitting against the big chunky cutting board. And it's like this distinctive sound and touch that really informed my ear, I think. And there isn't much, like, our family didn't talk about anything about like sexuality and like our interconnectedness with the world. And my mom didn't even taught me how to cook, but I think that's her minimum way to show me, and also the sounds of it.
Claire Saffitz taught you how to cook, right? Or bake. Yeah.
Shout out to Claire Saffitz.
The dessert
deserve prison.
Prison, honey.
But I think that's my early entry into learning about the world. I learned about colors. I learned how the colors red, yellow, and green always goes well together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Red, yellow, and green.
I think
in terms of food, not in terms of fashion, Mom.
I do that.
Yeah. Girl, you wear the most neutral colors. It's just white, black, gray, blue jeans, and that's it. Blue jeans.
Black stockings.
All right.
Yeah, but I think that was their first education of me, like teaching me how to...
You taught yourself.
I taught myself, right?
Through food.
Yeah. And also touching things, right? I think, like, we like to imagine... Like,
you Marie Kondo'd that, huh?
Yeah.
You're like, if it doesn't bring me joy, throw it away, huh? So...
Well, triggered. It reminds me of the guy that I dated for a month. But anyway, but yeah, like, I think food was my early introduction to the world. Not learning how to eat but cook, but like seeing the colors, learning the smells, right? I think that's
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fair.
Yeah.
And like you said earlier, we all have different relationships with food, and that's your reality, and live it. Live it, mama.
Live it, hunty.
Yeah, live it.
What about you? Like, how I know you mentioned before you have a contentious relationship with your depression and memory. Like, can you talk more about this?
Yeah, sure.
Is there a moment that jumps to you?
Not really. Not a particular moment. I think it's just been a long struggle.
Is it a big struggle?
Yeah, it's big. It's big, just like this ass. But I do have a contentious relationship with my memory, and I've seen it like steadily decline over the past few years. Actually, ever since I started grad school, I blame grad school.
Oh.
Ever since I started grad school, my mental health fucking plummeted. Exploded at the, like, in the toilet bowl when you fucking...
The shitty feelings.
Yeah, the shitty feelings like you spoke of earlier.
Eloquent.
Yeah, how...
Eloquent.
But yeah, I do have a contentious relationship with memory, and I've been dealing with depression for several years now. In fact, as long as I can remember. But over the last few years, with grad school and with the pandemic happened at such a fucking awful time for me, because it was my last year of funding, and it took a while to get out of...
To get out.
But I've noticed a steady decline in my ability to remember things as well. So it's true, when someone who is depressed has a worse memory. It's fucking true. Like, for example, I'll give you an example here. And this I've done this with multiple people. Like, someone will send me a meme, I'll laugh at it, and then like 2 days later, I'll send the meme back to them. I was thinking, like, this is like a new thing. The first time they are seeing it. But meanwhile, it's like, you sent it to me. And you've said that to me before. You're like, girl, I sent you that. And it's the same thing with my other friends. Like, I've done that with our friend Sean. Sent me a meme.
Hey, Sean.
Yeah, hey, girl. He sent me a meme, and I sent it back like 3 days later. And he's like, girl, I sent you that. And I'm like, fuck. I can't remember shit.
I think the three of us has the same algorithm.
Yeah, we're pretty faggy when it comes to what's provided to us on Instagram and Twitter and shit. But I did the same thing with my brother, where I was talking to him about my cat getting sick, and the day after I brought it up again. He's like, girl, anyway, he didn't say girl.
Bro.
And he's like, bro, you said that yesterday. And I'm like, oh shit, I don't remember things. And it's true. It's like fucking, and it's like embarrassing. Like, I get embarrassed by it. I try not to let that impact me, or like let the other person know, but I'm actually like very embarrassed that I can't remember shit. Like, I have to write everything down in like minute details in like a journal so I can keep track of everything. Because otherwise I won't fucking remember. I won't remember shit.
Right.
If I'm like invested in something, then I will remember because I'm so fucking anxious about it. But if it's something as like trivial as like a meme or whatever, like I get embarrassed by it when I don't remember who sent me something or where something is or whatever. Like, I harbor this intense embarrassment. It really sucks, and it really inhibits my ability to do things.
But you're recognizing that.
I am recognizing that. I recognize it's a problem, but I don't know what I can do to improve that. But I'm also like severely mentally ill.
Is it like a recent recognition?
No, this has been going on for a while. That's why I write everything down.
I don't think people are shaming you. Like, for example, when
no one's shaming me, but you have like this internalized voice that tells you like, what the fuck, man? Like, figure it out. Yeah. And then you just like you just kind of feel like that embarrassment just kick in. And it's like any other voice in your head. You can't really
I'm feeling embarrassed.
You must be feeling embarrassed. But yeah, when it comes to my everyday life, like I said, I just write everything down. And that's the only way, I think that's the way to counter that. And because, I mean, unless I start improving my mental health in more concrete ways when I actually have money to pay for therapy.
Oh, we need to talk about therapy at one point.
At one point, yeah, we could.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, it really fucking sucks.
And in a very bodily way.
Yeah.
Right.
And mental. And emotional. And yeah. And it kind of, it hijacks. It really does. Because, like, I can't remember shit. I'm surprised I even showed up here. No, I wrote that down a few days ago, good. So.
Thank you for journaling.
Journaling, yeah.
And being a good friend.
I mean, that's debatable, right?
But before we continue any further, we want to take another break. We'll be right back and talk more about memory. And we're back. Let's talk more about memories and remembering. So Jojo, do you remember what it was like growing up? And what was that like, and how has that shaped who you are now?
Yeah, you kind of already talked about growing up, so but yeah, my process of like remembering and my memories are also connected to my gender identity and sexuality and trauma. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, I know her.
But I think this is a common theme with a lot of people, like a lot of queer people specifically. Like, I've known I was gay or queer since a very young age, and like that never leaves you. Like, you are fixated on that for the rest of your life. You're like,
because it's a reality that people are giving you sometimes. Like, it can feel like they're imposing something.
Yeah, I mean, I've known for a long time. I've known those feelings, right? I didn't know the language, but that's, like you said, like when that's other people reading it onto you or imposing onto you, like this queer gay identity, and like that's just a reality for a lot of kids. We don't have the language, but it's codified onto us. Right? But when I was a kid, I used to wear one of my mom's hot pink scarves around my head and pretend it was hair. And that was like a formative moment in my life where like my parents actually let me. And my dad is like this very like buff, like workout dude. And he just let me do that.
They were in the room.
In the room. Like, I would literally wear my mom's like nightgowns. Her heels, I'd put her bras on and I'd stuff them with grocery bags.
Right.
And I would just walk around with titties. With titties. And that was like a formative moment in my life. And I really thought at that time, like I said, I had no language for queer or gay or whatever. Like, that was not in my vocabulary.
Right.
Especially growing up French. Like, my parents only spoke French to us until like I was in middle school. So everything was in French, but I thought at that point, I was like, I'm a girl. And like reflecting on that back now, and like back on that now, I realized I was a girl.
You were.
Because that was my reality at the time, and no one has the right to negate that, right? Especially for a kid.
Right.
No one has the right to, but a lot of other kids, like, that's a privilege that I've had, is that I was able to express myself in feminine ways, whereas like other kids don't.
Right.
They don't have that comfort.
It only take one parent's negative reaction to dissolve all of the
basically, right? And thanks to my parents, like they were great in that way. I mean, awful in some regards and great in others, like every other parent, right?
Right.
They're not perfect. They're also learning how to parent in general, and that's
parenting.
difficult.
That's why it's called parenting. They're also learning how to be a parent.
Yeah.
Right. Have they always known that you were?
Oh yeah, when I came out at 16, I mean, I've been out over a decade now, but when I came out at 16, they were like, "Fuck, we know."
Is that the right response?
I don't think so, but meanwhile, I was fucking bawling my eyes out. Like, I'm gay! And my mom's like, girl, we know.
Your mom is like, hi, gay.
Yeah.
Hi, gay. Happy Pride Month.
It's like, faggot.
Hey, fag.
Yeah.
What do you want to eat for dinner?
Yeah. She's like, girl, I know. And I'm like...
It's always the moms. It's always moms know it.
Yeah, and then the first person I told was my stepsister. And then I told her, please don't tell anyone. She fucking told my brother that same day.
Of course.
And then my brother told my dad that same day too. So everyone knew in the span of 24 hours. But my dad, he wasn't at home at the time, but I was in the living room with my stepsister, and he just came in and like stared at me with a big smile on his face. And he's like, I know.
Molly, you in danger, girl.
Yeah. He's like, I know, or whatever he said. And then he just like approached me and hugged me and cried. And he was like, I'm proud of you. And I'm like, work.
I'm
proud of me?
I don't want anyone to be proud of my sexuality.
Right?
Why?
No,
I mean,
I think it's proud that I'm being authentically myself.
Right. That's. I didn't mean to be defensive, but I just think, I hate. I'm being problematic. I just hate the
cancel her
idea of a perfect family who's like coming out to a parent and like the parent would be like, "Oh, I accept you." I'm like, I'm not trying to ask for acceptance. Maybe the whole idea of coming out is like
it's
irrelevant already.
It already is irrelevant.
But I'm happy that like culture has come a long way that like kind of reshape our understanding of coming out as generally speaking. But
I was, like lucky enough to have parents who didn't fucking care. So that's a privilege of mine. But another thing, like at that age too, when I was younger and like when I was, I didn't have a gender identity. But I was, living my reality, dressing up in my mom's clothes, whatever. That didn't change until like I started going to school and like socializing with all the other boys, and you realize like, shit,
I'm different.
I'm different, and this is not normal. Like and I say that in air quotes, like it's just dressing like just the way my body was in relation to how I was expressing myself was not quote normal. And that really threw me off. And that up until like my adult years, and I think I started identifying as non-binary this actually 5 years ago. I was like just finishing my master's degree, and up until that point I was like, shit, like I'm not happy like in terms of like how I'm expressing myself, etc. So that's when I started using the term non-binary, and I felt it alleviated some of that some of the burden and some of the anxieties that I had about my gender expression, etc.
Right.
So I kind of gravitated towards that, and we've already talked about liberalism co-opting those identities, and so I don't use it anymore. But I'm more at ease with who I am and how I express myself.
Right.
And I remember that, like, when you harbor or when you reflect on your childhood like that, you, like we said earlier, you take that with you for the rest of your life. Like, that is your reality.
Right.
That is where you come from. That obviously informs where you were headed. So, and like another thing that people also don't talk about is how much energy that takes to kind of like grapple with those parts of your childhood and like how it's impacting you
right
in the present,
and ways to come out from the other side and have like
and like make something positive out of it, because like kind of growing up, like doing your own thing and then realizing that, hey, this isn't normal, is like a traumatic experience too in its own right. And we don't really, it kind of like it forces you to remember these things and other things that you don't necessarily want to remember. I mean, I have other traumas too that are connected with my gender identity. I'm not going to talk about them on the pod today, but
just keep it casual and lighthearted.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a therapist first, and
BetterHelp.com
or .com. But I shoved all those things down for a reason, right? And like, you don't want to remember those uncomfortable things, because I'm trying to keep things positive. At this point in my life, I'm like, I'm always so fucking negative anyways. I have to consciously make an effort to think about positive things. Because otherwise I'm just going to fucking like, I'm gonna do things.
Wow.
But it's also like going back to what I've talked about earlier, like in terms of privileges, like it's a shame that queer, trans, and non-binary kids have to make those sacrifices just to avoid like the violence that comes with their identities. And I think it's also worth noting that my experiences are, like, as a white settler, completely different from Black and Indigenous kids or Asian kids who growing up in these kinds of environments that are hostile and violent. So we're not going to talk about that. I don't really want to talk about that in like detail, because that could be an episode of the pod in its own right. But
I think the like racialized and like trans experience and also like non-binary folks have a different setting. Like it's harmful to kind of compare. It one have it worse, like one have it better.
Yeah,
but
because that's the oppression element.
Right. But at the end of the day, it's like our own internal struggle doesn't stop us from relating to one another, and also kind of build like a stronger language and a stronger community and talk about those things and kind of proposing for a radical change, whatever that form might be.
Yeah, because our identity as queer people too is like, we should be working together. We should be like having a community or building a community.
Right.
Like that's the whole idea. That's what we should be doing. But we act as individual agents all the fucking time, and we just need to protect each other.
Yeah, in no matter how small and how
support and protect and encourage and love and cherish, and like we should be doing that too.
All those verbs.
Yeah, all the verbs, mom.
But to going back to the launching point of the podcast, like how can we channel those feelings and memories in a more positive and impactful ways? And then like to that, of course, I say we can, because like the beginning phase of that is about like having to survive, and also having friendships that you gather along the way, just like Wizard of Oz. You have to like gather those people and have like a way to articulate, and then also being present for one another. And maybe that's the start of like a more loving and a more like in practice, I mean, in a more caring community, I guess.
Yeah.
We've already touched on this with the ways that we discussed my relationship with food, and also how Jojo reconnected with their past childhood explorations with gender.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, it's something that I need to remind myself constantly, and I've touched on this already too. It's like you have to direct yourself towards the positive, I should say.
Right.
Because we are so intrusive sometimes. Like, we have intrusive thought and like negative and harmful feelings all the fucking time, that you actually have to cognitively like assert some kind of positive or positivity in
or
your life.
Something that makes you physically feel good, that it's like comes to you with no hard thinking. You don't think about something that helps you build happiness. It's not like a 1, 2, 3 process. It's like a gradual thing, right?
Oh, it's gradual. It won't happen overnight, and it's fucking difficult, and it takes a lot of energy. But like, I often forget too when I get really down and depressed. Like, I forget that I'm in charge of the ways that I, like, the ways in which, like, I let my memories inform who I am or where I'm going, right?
Interesting.
Because, yeah, I want to think about, like we talked about earlier, I just want to think about happy moments in my life.
Right.
But we're always so fixated on the negative. Like, why is that?
I think that it's about time. It's about the time, right? It's easy to dwell on the past, the bad,
Like the negative shit.
The negative shit, than to live in the present and be aligned with yourselves in the present, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a kid, I don't remember very many, like, happy memories.
Right.
I remember I was probably 8 years old. My adult teeth were just coming in, and this is quite a traumatic event in my life. But I went skating at, like, a neighborhood rink, because up north, every neighborhood has, like, an outdoor skating rink.
Yeah.
And the boards are very, very short. And I wasn't a good skater, but I remember tripping over my cousin's hockey stick, falling face first into the boards, and my teeth popped out of my fucking head. And I pushed them back in. So I had all of my fucking jagged-ass teeth all over the fucking place, bleeding like a pig. I was just bleeding out. My cousin and I ran down the street with my skates on at the time, and my mom had to bring me to the fucking emergency, and I had to get 2 sets of stitches in my mouth. I don't remember that, but I remember the accident vividly. I remember, like, falling, looking up, putting my hand to my mouth, crying, and I remember these 2 women staring at me, like, gasping. I remember that, like, vividly. I don't remember the stitches or anything because that's trauma, but...
Did the 2 ladies try to help, or were they just...
Oh, they were just gasping.
Were they in shock?
Yeah, they were in shock.
Right.
I don't remember anything else in my childhood that was happy.
When you think about those memories, what do they tell you? What do they inform you?
That's the thing. I don't know. I don't know what they're telling me.
Maybe you thrive off it. Maybe you have a...
I think that's a Pisces thing.
Very Katya season 7. Maybe you're addicted to anxiety. No. Not to psychoanalyze you, but...
Yeah. Well, you just did on the pod.
I'm not sorry. If that's not queer friendship, I don't know what that is.
But going on with this conversation too, like, queer people... for the most part, are always fixated on the negative. I mean, because we have to, as a survival mechanism in some ways. I'm just astonished how straight, white, rich people walk around without these intrusive thoughts, just constantly plaguing their minds like us. And, like, they just walk around without even questioning how their past memories or traumas inform them.
I think they experience a very similar version of it, but they don't dwell on it, like... Generally speaking,
or it's just not as severe,
right? Because it goes hand in hand with, like, the privilege, right?
Yeah.
Like, if someone's living a really comfortable life, there's no need to dwell on the past.
Yeah.
If they have every access to anything in the world, of course, there's no mental need, I assume, to, like, dwell on things, right? Right. But for me, my take is, like, what if it's a cruel optimism thing?
Yeah.
Like, what if the thing that we desire
is actually the obstacle to our flourishing?
What if happiness, the whole concept of it, what we actually want in life is actually the thing that
it is
stopping us to flourish, like
that's cruel
flowers.
Optimism. Yeah. Because Clarissa Dalloway wanted to get the flowers herself.
And
right?
she did.
And she did.
And she fucking did.
But it was a journey. It was a 250-page journey.
She did that.
Yeah, she did that.
Yeah.
But happy feelings can also be connected to how we remember. And I mean, we talked about that.
Right.
I
think one way to trick my brain that has been working.
Your working brain.
So far, it's like memories that I don't call them sad, like unhappy memories. I call them like memories that might suggest
happiness,
unhappiness, and kind of like ask myself, like, what is this telling me? Like, I've had so many bad memories with men in general, and how they treated me. And like I always delve into the whole race question, and I ask myself a really reductive and toxic question. Are they
because of your Asianness?
Right. Are they treating me shitty because I'm Asian? And
No,
I have to...
I think they're just treating you shitty because you're a shitty person.
I'm a shitty person. which is the most likely answer to that. But
you want a date, Jeff? Y'all boys want a date?
Carbon dating.
Carbon dating.
When I'm a corpse.
Yeah.
But like I said, it's more happiness. It's more like a inquisitive mode, I think. Like especially memories. Like they tell us so little, but they can tell us so much more. And
they tell us so much.
They tell us so much, yeah. Write about it.
I mean, you did already. You wrote about happiness.
Yeah, but
you're getting a hard-on for happiness lately. Eh?
I don't.
Yeah, because I'm not happy.
Well, I just don't think happiness means anything, and like it doesn't tell me anything. It doesn't. What are the stakes?
It doesn't motivate you, huh?
Right.
Yeah, me neither.
And I just want to.
Maybe I'm just.
We want to create meaning, right? We want to. That's something that adds something to our life and enriches our life. That's why the whole point of doing the podcast is to have a conversation and talk about it.
I'm really thinking about this. Maybe I'm addicted to anxiety. A la Katia.
Italics.
Yeah. Shit. But I guess what we were trying to say is that sometimes we just need to remember positive emotions or memories in order to actually feel our it's a full circle.
It's a full circle moment. Thank you for listening to our second episode of our podcast where we talk about memories. We hope to be a little more organized in our future episodes. Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Feeling My Oats Pod and Twitter at Feeling My Oats PD for updates about future content and episodes.
You can also find Jeff on Substack at Please Remind Me. And you can find me, Jojo, on Twitch real soon. I'll keep you all updated on that, on the pod socials, when that happens in the near future. But in the meantime, thank you for listening to our faggy voices and opinions, and we hope that you feel your oats today.
Okay.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye, girlies.